So Sarina Wiegman has unveiled her latest England squad for the October International. And in this video I'm going to go through the good, the bad, and analyse Sarina's latest selection. So we'll go in chronological order and we'll start with the goalkeepers then. 3 goalkeepers selected in this England squad. Of course we've got Hannah Hampton, we've got Anna Moorhouse and we've got Kiara Keating. So I think this is the setup England will have now going forwards with goalkeepers. I think obviously with Mary Earps retiring, that has weakened the pool of options for England, but you've still got Hannah Hampton there, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, as the starting keeper. You've got Anna Moorhouse, very experienced, and I think if called upon can be reliable. And Kiara Keating. Now, Keating's selection is a little bit interesting. Obviously, she is still in a rotation role at Manchester City alongside Yamashita. So it's a shame we don't have another nailed-on starting goalkeeper in the WSL. When you look through the rest of the clubs, not another one is nailed on and English. So yeah, that is a little bit of a concern. But I think overall, with Hampton, it should be fine. I'm hoping this international break and the upcoming internationals in November, there will be an opportunity for Moorhouse and Keating to get some minutes. I think one of the biggest concerns going into the last Euros was with Earps dropping out, who was going to come in if there was a problem. So I think Hampton's obviously fine. Hampton will be the first choice goalkeeper. We're hoping for this international break, we may see a little bit more of Moorhouse and Keating. Then the only player of interest for me who does miss out is Ellie Roebuck. Roebuck obviously hasn't played a lot yet for Aston Villa, but if she can usurp D'Angelo and become that starting goalkeeper, I think there's a route back to the England squad for Ellie Roebuck. I think that, I would like to see her in over Moorhouse or Keating. I think that she's got a lot to offer this team, but we need to see her play a lot more competitive football until we can sort of make that assessment. But for this international, I think we'll probably see Hampton start. I hope we don't. I hope it's Moorhouse given 190, Keating given the other 90, or even as a compromise, Hampton given 90 minutes in one game and then the other game we rotate between Moorhouse and Keating. Something like that, just to share around the minutes, just to give a little bit more confidence in our goalkeeping group rather than just Hampton. I'd like to see a little bit more rotation. And let's get into defenders then. Now the big interesting call is the return of Lucy Bronze. Bronze is in this squad despite being injured, obviously, throughout the season so far. We've also then got called up Jess Carter, who of course played at the Euros. We've got Lotte Wubben-Moy. We've got Niamh Charles, who was injured for a lot of last season, didn't make a lot of appearances. That's why we didn't see her much at the Euros, but I think we could see her more now. We've got Maya Le Tissier, who may actually finally be given an opportunity now that Millie Bright has decided to retire, and with Leah Williamson out injured. You would assume this has to be a chance for Maya Le Tissier, and we may do a video looking deeper at that next week. We've got Alex Greenwood, who played more as a left-back for England at the Euros. Will we see that in these internationals? We'll have to see. Then we've got Katie Reid, first senior call-up for Katie Reid, very excited. We've got Esme Morgan as well, and we've got Taylor Hinds. So a lot to discuss in this group of defenders. I've put them in their rough positions. The first thing is that unless we're going to see Le Tissier continue at right back, it's still very weak in this right back position, because at left back you've got Charles, who's a natural left back, you've got Hinds, who's a left back, you've got Greenwood, who played there at the Euros, we've got Morgan as well, who can play there, even Jess Carter can probably do a job there, but at right back it's just Lucy Bronze. And if we are going to see Le Tissier played in her proper position, it's going to leave England with just one right back. So as much as I want to see Le Tissier start at centre back, and I still think she should, I think we're probably more likely to see her at right back, especially considering Bronze only played 1 minute so far this season. So if she came back and played 180 for England, not only would that probably not work out well for England, probably wouldn't work out well for Lucy Bronze either. So I am a little bit concerned we're going to continue to not see Le Tissier in her best position just because we haven't seen another right back called up. And let's go through the rest of the selections. Katie Reid, thoroughly deserved. She's been excellent at Arsenal so far this campaign. Just looks very mature, very comfortable in possession. She's a strong physical defender. I think at 19 you wouldn't know that this is her first sort of opportunity to start at the highest level. So yeah, super impressed with Katie Reid so far this season. Wubben-Moy as well. I guess I understand why she's been selected. She's played a bit for England in the past. She's obviously a very experienced player, but with her not having a load of WSL minutes, it is a little bit concerning. Obviously, without Williamson, without Bright now as well, and without Millie Turner, I think it was sort of a shoo-in that she would be involved. But there are a few questions there for me because she hasn't played a lot of football. And then we've got Carter and Morgan, two experienced players. Not surprised to see them in this squad. They're the sort of players that I think going into 2027, it would be nice if some of the young players coming through could displace them, because I think we have got a really good set of players coming through the youth system in the 23s, 21s, in the 19s. So hopefully we see some of those players now given opportunities in the first team. And actually, I think this is a bit of a boring selection. There's some really interesting stuff in this squad selection. There's a lot of young players, so we've got to praise Sarina for that. But there's some choices that just don't make a lot of sense, and I think we could have seen some opportunities handed out to young players who would be thoroughly deserving of them. But it's great to see Katie Reid in there. Then at left back, I think we're going to see Greenwood play at left back throughout these internationals, probably. But there are other options in there. Niamh Charles, I think, could definitely get some minutes. She's played a lot more for Chelsea than she did last season, and it seems more of a rotation thing. She's played at left centre, but she's also played at left back, and we've not just seen Sondy Baltimore play every game for Chelsea. So Charles could definitely come in and play and start for England. I'd have no qualms about that. The selection I've got a little bit of an issue with is Taylor Hinds. I just don't understand it personally. I don't think Taylor Hinds is England level. I don't think she's ever going to be starting or coming to a major tournament. And so even though there is a bit of a shortage of fullbacks, and she is helped by the fact that she can do a job at both left back and right back, I just think there were better options out there. I'd have rather seen a young player called up and given opportunity rather than Taylor Hinds. I think it just shows that big club bias. She plays for Arsenal now, so she gets in the England squad. I don't think this is really on merit. She has played just 40 minutes so far in the WSL season. I just can't, there's no justification for me for Hinds being in this squad other than there aren't many fullbacks right now, and Sarina doesn't want to hand an opportunity to a youngster. It's her first senior call-up, Hinds. It just doesn't make any sense to me, personally. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are very happy for her. I just think, as well, on a personal note for Hinds herself, she was called up by Jamaica at the last internationals. If she had chosen to represent Jamaica, she probably has a good chance of playing at the next World Cup. Instead, she's trying to get into the England team. If she is in the England team at the next World Cup, then there's been a huge failure on the system of bringing young players through, because there's so many good young defenders right now who are already exceeding the level of Taylor Hinds. So I just find it's a really weird selection. But overall, not too disheartened by the back line. I think it's great to see Katie Reid in there. That's a little bit new. Hopefully we see Letitia at centre-back. I just doubt that we will. So that's my concern in there. And I can't understand, as I say, the decision to include Taylor Hinds. Moving into midfield then, I'm really happy with the selection of midfielders. There's a nice mixture here of young players, but also bringing through that experience as well. So we've got in there Georgia Stanwell, experienced England international. We've got Laura Blinkilder-Brown, who has played a little bit for England before, not a whole lot though, but has been revelationary at Manchester City this season. Looked really good in that deeper role, and I think obviously with those question marks around Walsh's role in this side and the fact there isn't really another option, I think it's really good that we're going to see Laura Blinkilder-Brown potentially in a deeper role. Obviously, as I mentioned there, we've got Kira Walsh. She's looked much better for Chelsea this season than she did last year. I think still a very reliable player, and I have no qualms again about her in the England team. Then we've got Lucia Kendall. Very excited to see Kendall. It's her first senior call-up. I think that she's a player who, again, like Katie Reid, thoroughly deserves this opportunity. She's been really good in the handful of appearances that she's made for Aston Villa this season. She started the last 3 games consecutively with Jill Byjings on the sidelines, a spell of injury, I believe. And yeah, Kendall's been phenomenal for Villa this season, and I think she'll come in if she gets an opportunity in this international break and show her quality for England. So yeah, really good to see Kendall called up. Alongside Aston Villa teammate Missy Bow-Kearns. Missy Bow-Kearns, another player, thoroughly deserves this opportunity. She was in the preliminary squad for the Euros. Obviously 3 of those had to be cut though, and since she's not really a key player, she was cut from that. But brilliant to see her involved in this squad. I think her performances at club level have merited it, and I think that, again, it offers more depth for England in those defensive midfield roles, and it should free up the next player, Grace Clinton, to play a bit of a higher role. So we've got Clinton, we've got Park, and we've got Toon are the rest of the midfielders. Big fan of all of these players. I think what could be really interesting is how we're going to see Toon and Park used, because we've seen at Manchester United, if I just move Clinton out of the way, we've seen Toon in this sort of attacking midfield role, and then Park as a right winger, but what we've seen often is Park coming inside, Toon coming across a little bit, and then Bronze overlapping. And I think this could be a really combination to get the best out of Park and Toon in these sorts of areas. Obviously then we'll talk about forwards in a moment, but someone like Russo in behind to get Bronze and then get someone on the left hand side who can hold the width. Obviously that would normally be Lauren Hemp, but she is out injured at the moment. So I think this could work really nicely for England. In fact, it could even be Grace Clinton. We've seen her do that for Manchester City. So yeah, I really like this midfield for England. I think there's a lot of good options. I think it's a really nice mix of youth and experience. I'm hoping we see lots of opportunities handed out for the younger players. These are just friendly games. So as much as obviously there are people going that will want to see all the big stars, and you do to a certain extent have to make do for that. You've got to make sure that the fans that are going do actually get to see some of the big players. But I really want to see some of the youngsters hand an opportunity. I'm hoping we see minutes for Kearns, for Kendall, for Blinkilder. I'm hoping we see Clinton in a little bit of a higher role potentially. But yeah, lots of experience in this midfield alongside a lot of young players. I think it's a perfect balance in there. And actually now we've got a bit of depth in those defensive midfield positions. There's a lot of concern going into the Euros and throughout the Euros that there wasn't really another option. If Stanway or Walsh were to get injured, it could be a major problem. And luckily, there was no problem there and England went on to win it. But now we've got depth in there and I think that definitely strengthens this England team. In terms of players who did miss out, and I forgot to do that for defenders actually, but we'll circle back around to that. But in terms of players who did miss out in midfield, we've got Ruby Mace, who since I moved to Everton hasn't really worked out at club level, and I think Kendall and Kearns have both been more impressive, and Blinkilder Brown in fact have all been more impressive this season. So I'm not too concerned about Ruby Mace not being in the squad. I think she'll come back in if she can pick up form. But with Kendall and Kearns and Blinkilder performing at the level they are, I have no real issues there. The other one that I would say is a keep an eye on kind of player is Olivia McLaughlin. I think she's been really good for Leicester this season. I think she's a player who has shown that even while Leicester haven't been great, she's looked quite sharp. So I think definitely an option to consider in that Georgia Stanway type role, in that box-to-box midfielder type role alongside a more defensive player. So yeah, definitely one to look out for. Circling back to defence, because I wanted to touch on who has missed out and players I think would be better options than Taylor Hinds. I forgot to discuss that. We've got Naomi Loisel. I'm very surprised that she hasn't been given an opportunity. I noticed that she has had some injury concerns, but I still think that she'd have been a better option in defence. She can play either fullback, she can play centre-back. I just think she gives you a lot more than Taylor Hinds offers. Some other ones, Izzy Hobson, just 17, hasn't played a load of football this season, but I think is someone to look out for the next few years, similar to Olivia McLaughlin. It's a sort of player who could have been given an opportunity rather than a Morgan or Carter just to be involved in the squad, but at this stage it's probably more beneficial for Hobson to be involved in the youth sides. Other options, Grace Pryor, no idea why she's not involved. I think it's a huge oversight. She's been really good for Man City this season, becoming a lot more assured of herself. I think if it's that classic case of she's played a lot of football similar to sort of Katie Reid, but Reid is going to get called up over her. I don't think there's a huge disparity between those two players. So I think it's a bit of a shame that Pryor hasn't been considered. I think she'd have been a better option than someone like an Esme Morgan or a Jess Carter, for example. So I think that is a real shame. I think we could have seen an opportunity there for a youngster. Other options at fullback, Aria Dennis. I think looking at the fact there are barely any right backs, obviously we'd be looking at Ella Morris, but she's out injured with an ACL, so why not give Aria Dennis an opportunity? I know she hasn't played loads this season for Tottenham, but she has had more minutes than Taylor Hinds, for example. So yeah, I'd rather see Dennis given an opportunity, and actually we don't have any right backs, so I'm not sure why we wouldn't hand someone like that an opportunity. Then in terms of other left backs, Gabby George. I know she missed a few games to start the season for injury, but she's still played more minutes than Taylor Hinds. I think that she could easily come into this squad. I mean, Bronze hasn't played 1 minute, came off the bench in the last game for Chelsea. That's all she played and she's in this England squad. So I think it's a little unfortunate for George not to make this team. And yeah, just another one that raises questions for me over why she's not involved. Asmita Rail, another player I'd say is right on the fringe of the England squad. I think that she's been really good, really reliable for Leicester over the last few seasons. Again, probably a better selection for me than Taylor Hinds, but she doesn't play for Arsenal. And then Anouk Denton. I know West Ham haven't been good this season, but Denton still looked really sharp. So I think it's a bit of a shame we don't see players like that handed an opportunity. And then Rachel Maltby as well to Aston Villa. I know she's still only 18, but again, we've seen Katie Reid given that opportunity. Why can't we see someone like Maltby given that opportunity? I think Rachel Maltby is already a very, very good player, and I wouldn't think she would look out of place in the defensive line. So yeah, bit of a shame to not see a bit more of an interesting pick than just Taylor Hinds, but there we go. Let's get into the forward line then. Firstly, obviously injuries to Lauren James and Lauren Hemp, big losses for England, but still some exciting attackers in this team. In terms of strikers, it's pretty much the same options as always: Beaver Jones, Adjumang and Alessia Russo. And then in terms of wide players, we've got Mead and we've got Kelly. Obviously Clinton can play wide, Jess Park can play wide. We've seen Toon wide before. I think it's a little bit of over-cramming in midfield. Traditionally, we've seen like 5 wingers get called up and 2 central midfielders, and there's no depth in there. This international break, we've gone completely the other way, where there are so many defensive midfielders where it's going to be difficult to give them all opportunities, and we don't really have enough wingers. But I think that's down more to who's in form and who isn't in form than anything else. So yeah, a bit of a shame, but I think, looking at the league, who else could have been in this squad? It's a little bit difficult to suggest anyone. Let's go through these though. In terms of strikers, Beaver Jones, red hot form for Chelsea. A little bit disappointing last 3 matches, but start the season so well and is absolutely nailed now, provided she's fit for England. She's definitely that second option behind Alessia Russo. Speaking of Russo, she's never going to be left out of an England squad as long as she is fit. Again, no qualms with that. And Adjumang as well. Done well for Brighton this season. Keeps getting really good opportunities and not quite taking her chances, but she's started to add goals, a few more goals to her game of late. So that should be good. And obviously was brilliant in the Euros. So yeah, no problems there. My only thing is that it's difficult because you don't take any of these 3 strikers out, but I would say Isabel Goodwin's been really good this season, and it's kind of harsh that she isn't going to get in this England team because of the strength in depth there, But yeah, Isabel Goodwin could be an option going forwards if any of these were to get injured. The other one, Ebony Salmon. I've been disappointed with Salmon this season. I think she's right on the fringe of that England squad, but she's just been inconsistent and she keeps getting really good opportunities. We saw it last weekend for Aston Villa against Leicester. She was through on goal like 3 times and just got it all wrong. She scores a hat-trick. I think there'd be more of a push for her to be in the England squad. So yeah, it's difficult. I don't see any strikers breaking this trio at the moment, but yeah, I think if Salmon can keep scoring or can start scoring at the rate she should be, then she's got to be in with a consideration. I think Goodwin as well could fire her way into Sarina Wiegman's plans. In wide areas, Beth Mead and Chloe Kelly, just the bog standard picks really. Wiegman loves both these players, they're never going to get dropped. Kelly hasn't been particularly good for Arsenal this season. I think Mead has been better for Arsenal this season than Kelly. But again, not many wide options at the moment with James and with Hemp both out injured. I don't think there's many options. The only one I would say is Jess Naz. I think Jess Naz was called up last season in times when she perhaps didn't really deserve to be, because there were a lot of moments where she wasn't really playing well at club level, but was getting called up at international level. That didn't really make much sense. This season, she started to play really well this season for Tottenham, and maybe actually it's better just to let her thrive in that environment for now. But I think she's definitely got to be considered for the England squad in the near future if she keeps playing like she has, because she looked a lot sharper in recent weeks. So definitely on the fringes there. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think this is too bad in England squad. I think I'm a little bit disappointed with the defensive options. I think we could have seen opportunities for Naomi Lazelle, for Grace Pryor. Other than that, though, this looks fairly strong. I hope we see a lot of minutes for some of the rotation players. I think we're going to see a bit of Jess Park out wide, maybe Grace Clinton out wide as well. Hope we get a lot of minutes for the younger players. But in terms of the squad, it's not too bad. I think, again, there's some selection choices I disagree with, but I'm not too concerned overall. I don't think that this is a case of Wiegman sticking with her favourites too much. I think the favourites that she is sticking with, to use that term, they're players who you don't really see another option. Like I would say, if we had James and Hemp fit, I don't think Chloe Kelly should be in this England squad. I think she probably would still be selected by Wiegman, and in that case, we then discuss her picking favourites. But I think in this squad, there's not too much of her picking favourites. Perhaps you could argue Morgan Carter is the only ones there. But other than that, really happy with this England squad. It's great to see some players given opportunities. I just wish we saw it more. I wish we saw more young players given a shot in this England squad. But overall, really encouraging. That is everything from us today. We'll have another video out next week ahead of that England-Australia game, and then obviously the England-Brazil game before that as well. So just previewing it, and yeah, obviously we'll have reactionary content out to whatever happens over the international break. So join us for that. That is everything from me today. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.